He is the author of the upcoming book, Apprentice Nation.
Apprenticeship is totally different. It's a job. Digital transformation is increasing the demand for skills that are harder to learn in a classroom than they are by doing. He'd like to say that as an investor, you really only do four things. You decide to enter an investment, you decide to exit an investment, you hire a CEO, and you, if necessary, fire the CEO. Everything else that you do is in support of the CEO.
Welcome to the Opportunity Accelerators podcast. This is a show where professionals at any stage can learn how to level up their career from those that have already found success and have the scars to prove it. We like to think of the show as sort of a mentorship in a podcast. Basically, we get to talk to a lot of smart people and learn from their experiences. I'm Vince Verga, and speaking of smart people, I'm here today with my friends and business partners and the third place winners of the first annual Skillstorm Pickleball Tournament, Justin Vianello and Joe Mitchell.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Just basking in the glow of third place. Basking in the glow.
Doing great. Medal there, Justin? Can you share it?
I have a medal. There it is, just to prove it's real. Never played pickleball before, ever. Borrowed back $7 from a gas station, and there it is.
And it showed.
It showed.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It was a fun event.
Who knew that you guys had such pickleball prowess? So
that's hard to believe.
So for our first few episodes, we decided we were going to speak to people that we consider to be personal mentors to ourselves. And so I'm going to let Joe go ahead and introduce our first guest, who Joe's known for quite some time, and Joe credits for a lot of his success. So Joe, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Vince. Thanks, Ryan, for joining the show. Really excited to have you on board. As I've mentioned, you've been a mentor to me, absolutely. And this is the Accelerator podcast. And to us, you epitomize an opportunity accelerator. So we're really glad to have you on the show. By way of introduction, Ryan is the managing director at Achieve Partners and was formerly MD at University Ventures. Ryan's commentary on where the puck is going in education and workforce regularly appears in the Gap Letter, Forbes, and Inside Higher Education. He is the author of the upcoming book, Apprentice Nation, which you can nicely see in his background there. How the earn and learn alternative to higher education will create a stronger and fairer America. The book is being released in November, and I've already got my copy ordered. He's also the author
of that's who ordered a copy.
That's the one sale you made.
I'm getting the friends and family discounts as well. Ryan's also the author of A New You, Faster and Cheaper Alternatives to College, which was named in the Wall Street Journal as one of the books of the year in 2018. A New You describes the critical importance of last mile training and the emergence of boot camps, income share programs, staffing and apprenticeship models as preferred pathways to good first digital jobs. Ryan's first book was College Disrupted, The Great Unbundling of Higher Education in 2015, which profiles the coming shift of competency-based education and hiring. Ryan is also the co-founder of Apprenticeships for America, a national nonprofit dedicated to scaling apprenticeships across the US economy. Previously, Ryan led education and training sector at Warburg Pincus, and his prior experience in higher education was at Columbia University. Ryan also founded and built Wellspring, a national network of boarding schools and summer camps for overweight and obese children, adolescents, and young adults. He began his career at McKinsey & Co. At university, he received his bachelor's degree, summa cum laude, and Phi Keeper Bata. I think I've said that right. Or Phi Keeper Bata.
You might want to try that one again.
Okay.
That's okay. We're not into academic credentials on this podcast.
I'll try that again. Ryan received his bachelor's degree as summa cum laude and Phi Keeper Bata from Yale University.
I think we probably
you do that all day.
Let's
from
tackle
Yale
that.
University.
Let's edit that out.
And his law degree from Yale Law School. Welcome to the pod, Ryan. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Well, it's an honor. Joe and Justin are two of my heroes, and Vince Vince as well. It's one thing to sort of have an idea for how a better way for education and workforce development to operate. It's another to execute it and actually make it happen, which is what Skillstorm is doing every day. So I'm honored to be on the podcast, honored to be partnered with you, and excited to chat.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you, Ryan.
great.
I appreciate
Thank
that.
Well, look, as an expert in education and workforce development, and a recognized expert, you've seemed to be dipping your toe more recently into the showbiz world, the world of showbiz with HGTV, with a little cameo there. Just interested to know if that's something you're going to continue to do if you're looking for a space on network TV.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I have to. Although with the new book coming out, it's quite possible that I will be talking to more media organizations.
Sure.
I do think that apprenticeship is about to have a moment in the country. The debate around college affordability, student loan debt, forgiveness, and so forth has just been going on so long. It's really time we talked about some positive alternatives. And to my mind, apprenticeship is by far the most constructive, positive alternative in that it's different from every other pathway. It's truly a level playing field because it's a job. First and foremost, it's a job. Doesn't require tuition, doesn't require student loan debt, doesn't require taking a financial or even employment risk because you're hired from day one. And so I'm excited to get out there and talk to anyone who's interested in talking to me about why America lags every other developed country on apprenticeship and what we can do to change that.
So, Ryan, I've got a question on that. It is an interesting topic because, obviously Joe and I were born and raised elsewhere, and in those places where we grew up, apprenticeships are popular, right? Why do you think it has lagged the way it has in the US? Why hasn't the US really adopted apprenticeships? And obviously now it's starting to become topical, but why have they lagged the rest of the world in terms of moving into this apprenticeship space?
Well, we have that in common. We're all Commonwealth babies. I'm from Canada as well, and it is more popular.
I'm the only natural-born citizen here.
That's right.
Yes. Outnumbered.
The United Nations on this pod.
You're outnumbered. Look, I think, and in the book I talk about the fact that, it seems like every month we have politicians, taking a junket over to Germany, Austria, Switzerland, drinking the Riesling, eating the schnitzel, and trying to look at the models over there and ask, why can't we create something similar here? And it turns out that's really not an apt comparison for lots of historical reasons we can get into later. But the better comparison is actually our homelands, Australia, the UK, Canada, because 30, 40 years ago, apprenticeship in those countries looked a lot like it does here today, which is to say relatively limited to the construction sector primarily, and not, in tech or financial services or healthcare or anything like that. That has changed, and that's changed because of good policy in those countries that we're still in the top of the first inning.
What do you think is holding back apprenticeships here in the US?
Well, the biggest thing is that we haven't figured out what the engine of apprenticeships are. From a policy standpoint, we're continuing to look at apprenticeships as interchangeable with every other training or education pathway when they're different. And the reason they're different is that they're a job. It's a job. So every other pathway is you sit in class, you either pay tuition or someone's paying tuition for you, and you kind of train and pray for employment at the end. Apprenticeship is totally different. It's apples and oranges. It's a job. And so the fundamental question is not who's going to develop the training curriculum or what the curriculum is, but who's actually going to hire this unproductive person and pay them wages for a period of time until they become productive. So that's the question. And in no other country, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, the UK, Canada, France, Australia, is it that employers have done so out of the goodness of their heart, right? In every other country, it's because there's an intermediary who has stepped in, whether for reasons of history, culture, statute, as in the case of Germany, where these intermediaries are required by statute to play this role. Chambers of commerce and unions are required to do it. Or in the case of Australia and the UK and Canada, because of good policy, because the government has provided formula-based funding for intermediaries where they're paid for every apprentice they hire, train, and place and that has generated a robust ecosystem of these intermediaries that doesn't exist here. The good news is that through our work, we've actually helped establish the first formula-based funding in America. Apprenticeships don't create themselves. They're created because apprenticeship intermediaries step in and do the heavy lifting of setting up and running apprenticeship programs for employers. Employers don't run it themselves. In Germany, Austria, Switzerland, they're not. It's mostly chambers of commerce and unions. Even in the U.S. in the construction trades, it's unions who are running these apprenticeship programs. So the key is to identify who these intermediaries can be in tech and financial services and healthcare and logistics, and help incentivize them to get into the business of setting up and running apprenticeship programs. And in every other country, that's required smart public policy and predictable formula-based funding.
About the program in California, is that the way you see moving the needle the quickest here in the States? Is it state by state, or does this need to be more of a national initiative?
We've had a number of conversations with different departments of the federal government who are interested in setting up at least pilot programs, and I would expect that before the end of this administration, we're going to see formula-based funding for one or more sectors. So you can imagine formula-based funding from the Department of Commerce for semiconductor fabrication apprenticeships. So that's the kind of thing I think that we will see, and that provides a model for a broader based program. But look at this. We're total taxpayer dollars spent on colleges and universities in this country, federal and state, are over $400 billion a year. And that's before we get into student loan forgiveness or increasing the generosity of the income-based repayment program. It's kind of been $400 billion a year. We are total taxpayer dollars supporting apprenticeships, federal and state, are under $300 million. So it's over 1,000 to 1 ratio, college to apprenticeship. If you compare a college student to a working apprentice and you ask how much public support is this person receiving, for every dollar received by the apprentice, the college student is receiving $50. So I don't know whether the right ratio is 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 in favor of, either way, but it certainly shouldn't be 50-to-1 or 1,000-to-1. And it's not that in any other country. So we are way out of balance in terms of our approach to career launch and human capital development in this country. And then a couple of other points I want to make. One is that digital transformation, as you all know, is increasing the demand for skills that are harder to learn in a classroom than they are by doing. The other thing is AI, right? The big change over the last year has been AI. And if you think about the skills that are required to actually use AI correctly and leverage AI, some of them, require the kind of basic critical thinking, problem solving skills that you gain in a classroom environment. But more of those skills actually require sort of on the job experience, context, and so forth that you can really only get from on the job learning.
The apprenticeships that you were referring to, the programs that they have in the UK and Australia and Canada, do those address white collar knowledge workers as well?
Yeah, it's very common. I think as Justin and Joe know that, to become an accountant or become a technology professional or a healthcare professional in those countries, there are established apprenticeship pathways and programs. In fact, I think in accounting in the UK, it's now much more common to apprentice than it is to, go to some sort of university program.
And do you have
So
data
what-
in terms of the ROI on those types of programs versus the ROI that we're getting by spending $400 billion a year to send kids to college?
So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of studies on the ROI from apprenticeships here in the U.S. It's anywhere from sort of a 10-to-1 return to a 30-to-1 return. Ultimately, if you consider all of the stakeholders, whereas it's in order to sort of demonstrate ROI from college, you're either doing higher level mathematics or you're engaging in some kind of self-select. I mean, it always boggles my mind that we're continuing to cite the fact that people who have degrees make more than people who don't have degrees, without regard to the self-selection. Right? Anybody who goes, first of all, anybody who has the family income and support to help them make it through a 4-year journey through college, is probably someone who's going to make more money anyway. Add to the fact that someone who actually does make it through, does the work and so forth, is probably going to make more money anyway. And all of these studies that continue to cite return on investment to college. I was just reading something this morning that said, it's a no-brainer, right? People make more when they have degrees. Well, yes, the people who are going to be able to earn degrees and make it through are probably going to make more anyway. So I've never seen a study that's a true apples to apples, where you take a population of those who could have made it through, easily made it through, and then compare those to but didn't opted not to earn a degree relative to those who did, and that would be a true apples to apples comparison. But that's not what's cited.
Sure. I actually like this conversation, and I've had it before with a number of other people. In terms of, they'll say, hey, over your lifetime, you may earn $1 million, and I'm sure you know what the latest number is if you have a college degree. I don't think that is really taking into account the fact that you're forgoing 4 years of salary, and you're also probably getting yourself into $200,000 of debt during that process. And I'm just curious as to your thoughts on that, and how that can actually, given the role of technology, and you mentioned AI, the speed at which things are changing, you need to be more adaptable and more flexible, and you need to learn and continue to learn rather than learn something and think you've got it for life.
Well, I think that some of the people there was just a friend of mine, Ben Weldowski, had a piece in the New York Times saying, all this stuff about skill-based hiring and degrees don't matter. It's ridiculous. I think that people like Ben would say that it's the kind of problem-solving, critical thinking skills, learning to learn skills that you get from 4 years of college that are instrumental to that. Where if you're going to have to do 6 things over your lifetime, you need to have that bedrock in order to be successful. So I think that some of the legitimate critics that I pay attention to of the sort of work that we do around apprenticeship are, well, what if you go down this road and then you have to, it doesn't work out and you have to do something completely different? Do you have those underlying skills that you're going to need to learn something different? By the way, the data there is pretty clear that someone who apprentices and goes on and does something else almost always does something in a related field where their apprenticeship is relevant. But
Ryan, how much of this comes to the perception of apprentices, right? Because, obviously I spent a lot of my early career in Australia, and my experience in Australia is that apprenticeships are a genuine alternative when you finish school, right? So that they're not viewed as being something, inferior or however it might be digested. They're viewed as a genuine pathway, and people who go through apprenticeships, especially apprenticeships in electrical trades, they make an enormous amount of money when they eventually qualify, and long term, they earn very, very well. So there's no issue with the perception of pursuing an apprenticeship. Do you think that plays into some of the challenges we've had in the US around really getting people to adopt apprenticeships?
Completely. Apprenticeships today are identified with blue-collar construction trades because 70% of apprenticeships on offer in the US currently are in those areas. So they're not wrong. So the challenge we face is, how do we add 1 million, 2 million, 3 million new apprenticeships in tech, financial services, healthcare, so we can kind of wash out that. I mean, look, I'll be the first one to say those are good jobs, right? Blue collar construction. You can make six figures. You can own your own business. Those are good jobs. The problem is that over the last 50 years, the socially acceptable pathway to economic advancement has been through college. And most parents would say, oh, those jobs, those blue collar construction trade jobs, being a roofer, being a welder, that's all right for some other kid, but not for my kid. I don't want my kid working with his hands. I want my kid to have a, job as a, lawyer, doctor, software developer, you name it. So, it's all about building infrastructure and capacity. We spent the last 200 years building post-secondary education infrastructure in this country. And in terms of taxpayer dollars, the last, 70 doing that. That has been the focus. We need to spend, the next 7 building apprenticeship infrastructure. We haven't done it yet. Yeah. And it's not going to be the government picking winners. It's not going to be through workforce boards or community colleges or hoping that employers somehow get the religion and begin building these programs themselves. As we've seen from every other developed country outside of Central Europe, the answer has been recognizing the central role played by apprenticeship intermediaries in actually building these programs, setting them up and running them for employers.
Well, and I know you're leading the charge on that. And if done in the right way, I don't think college and apprenticeships are mutually exclusive. And what I mean by that is there's no reason why you couldn't take a tech apprenticeship today and be with the employer of choice. And that employer of choice can offer education as a benefit. So not only are you getting training on the job, but later as you progress through your career, they can pay for you to continue at college and use that as an incentive to keep you. Just curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that there's going to be a big movement towards best of both worlds here. You could imagine like an Arizona State, a Western Governors University, Southern New Hampshire University, right? These innovative schools, sort of building out that employer outreach arm and becoming real high intervention intermediaries, running programs, selling them to employers, and making degrees coterminous with the length of their apprenticeship programs.
Sure. Yeah, so you're getting degrees and credentials and on-the-job experience over 4 years, rather than just sitting for 4 years to get your degree.
Yeah, I mean, look, the problem is that academic institutions, they don't have the infrastructure to reach out and engage employers for real work experience. Employers don't have the bandwidth to deal one-on-one with half a dozen or a dozen different universities to do it. This is a many-to-many problem. Sort of calls for sort of a network, an intermediary to stand between the two.
There was a recent Wall Street Journal article that talked about the bloat of college budgets, and in particular some of the flagship universities, which I think you just referenced in an article that you wrote for Forbes.
Yeah.
What is driving that bloat, in your opinion, and what needs to be done about it?
Well, I think the ultimate cause is poor governance. And I've written about this for years, which is that, your typical college or university trustee is not a higher education expert, has made his or her name in some other field, is somehow linked to the university, alumnus, has loyalty, but doesn't have expertise. Most of what he or she knows, they receive in sort of pre-readings, from the leadership at the university. And, most of what happens at these boards is, sort of rubber stamping what the administration wants to do. So rather than digging deeply into cost structures, the easy thing to do is just simply approve another 4 or 5% tuition hike. And that's what happens. And that has enabled this bloating where, you have universities where there are more administrators than there are students.
How much of a driver or contributing factor to the problem is, how easy it is to get the student loans.
Well, yeah, none of this would be happening if not for that subsidy. All right. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. We absolutely should. I started off by talking about how we need to subsidize apprenticeships. I just think it's out of balance.
Right.
So, but there are, smart people like Michael Horn, my friend Michael Horn, who just testified before Congress that, we need college and university should be on the hook. They should have some skin in the game.
100%.
When that federal or state funding doesn't pay off for the student. I've talked in my work about this information asymmetry that happens in higher education. Your typical college or university is going to have a much better idea as to whether or not this particular program is going to be effective for this particular student than the student will. Right. That university's seen dozens or hundreds of students, of that profile come through before with that level of motivation, aptitude, preparation. Were they successful? If they don't know, it's willful ignorance because they could know or they should know. It's just a function of data collection. But they don't. But for the student, this is kind of a one-time, once in a lifetime purchase for many of them. They're never going to know. So you have this information asymmetry problem, where, in my view, a big answer to that is make sure that before students make that decision or asked to make that decision, they've actually had work experience, they've made some money. So this notion of we should just go high school, college to work, I think is for many or most people, I think it's backwards. I think it should be high school to work to college, and work hopefully is not a frontline position, retail or hospitality. Hopefully it's a some kind of apprenticeship program that can lead to a gateway to upward mobility. Well, at the undergraduate level, your first program out of high school, millions of people each year are making, basically blind decisions, enrolling in low return programs at non-selective universities where 70% of the time they're either not going to complete or they're going to graduate into underemployment. And the colleges know better. They're taking the money, the subsidized federal money. Yep. They're paying their faculty and administrators. And they're not on the hook for any of it. So it's a broken system. It needs to change. In my mind, the best way to change it is to construct a viable alternative. So students will vote with their feet. We know that if you set up, if you set up an apprenticeship program, which is a paid pathway into a desirable field, you get hundreds of applicants for every open seat in the cohort. Our programs are more selective than any post-secondary institution out there. And there's a reason for that, which is it's a better value proposition for the student. Instead of asking them to take a financial risk and an employment risk, it's the opposite. You're paying them. Them, and they're hired from day one. So we just need, I think that almost everything that we're talking about would be ameliorated or solved if we had 5 million apprenticeships in the country as opposed to 500,000.
Yeah.
So Ryan, I'm interested to know a little bit about your background with Achieve Partners and University Ventures. Obviously, you're founding partner of both. Where did this passion for alternative pathways come from?
Look, I think it came from working with you guys.
Sorry to interrupt. But Ryan, you might maybe want to share with everybody what Achieve Partners does and what
sure.
What the purpose is.
My fund, my firm Achieve Partners, we are the leading investor, private equity investor at the intersection of education and employment. And so we have 2 funds, 2 strategies, both buyout, which means we don't make early stage investments. We acquire companies and try and transform them for good. And the first is an ed tech fund where we're helping schools and educational programs and colleges make better use of educational technology. And second is our workforce fund, where we're acquiring companies in sectors where there's a talent gap and building large-scale apprenticeship programs to create new pathways to employment in fields where there just simply weren't these pathways before. So we're essentially, in our workforce fund, we're building new apprenticeship intermediaries, just like SkillStorm, except that the companies in our portfolio tend to be more specialized. So we have a healthcare IT company, a cybersecurity company, a Salesforce company, a Workday company, and so forth. And these companies are solutions providers, service providers. They're doing, 10 different things for clients in that ecosystem. And now they're doing an 11th, which is they're producing hundreds of new trained certified consultants that are available to work on projects, on managed services, or through staff augmentation to the clients. So that's what Achieve does. And,
so in terms of,
and Justin was asking, how did you get so passionate about the space?
So I think a lot of it just came from the fact that I've been in higher education for now almost, at least 25 years now. I started my career at Columbia University, and sort of the dawn of the online education era. Helped build a large online university, invested in a dozen different traditional sort of higher education related businesses, sort of helping make higher education better. Began investing in boot camp models when, that we sort of coined it last mile training about 10 years ago as those came to the fore, and really continued to see that none of these models really made much of a difference in terms of employability, because much as they might solve the skills gap, they weren't doing much about the experience gap. And most employers, you can be skilled, you can be certified, but if you actually haven't done the job before, most are not going to want to take a chance on you. Experience is really, the most important thing. And so that was the how I met Joe and Justin, which is I was speaking at a conference talking about this, and a fellow came up to me and said, "Well, we're a software developer staffing company, and we have the same idea." And it was kind of like a chocolate in your peanut butter moment. Kind of the rest is history.
I think, Ryan, to pick up on your point as well about it's an experience gap as well as a skills gap. I'd also like to say it's also, to some extent, a connections gap. So one of the things that really resonated with me when we spoke, and I was looking on my LinkedIn because you reached out to me in February 2016. I was like, that's how long ago it was.
What a journey.
But but it completely changed the trajectory of my career, right? Meeting you, talking with you, I was inspired from the first conversation we had about this new model. And the reason I was inspired is because as a first generation college grad myself, I did a computer and information systems degree. I also was combined with business, but I didn't have any connections in the workforce. I didn't even know how to apply for these roles and what to say and what not to say. So I think that these organizations, given the connection with industry as well, also help solve that kind of pathway to a good career in great companies that you can get without necessarily having the connections if you've got the work ethic, the aptitude, and the skills. Organizations like SkillStorm can help solve that. And that gets me up every day as a result, and something I'm super passionate about, and I'm sure you share.
Yeah, look, I think that Gen Z has had sort of, they look at their, older millennial siblings and cousins and friends, and they see a lot of turmoil. A lot has happened in the world, from the Great Recession to COVID. There's been a lot of disruption. I think this is a generation that is looking for curated pathways into careers, and that's exactly what apprenticeships are. It's if you stick with it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you are pretty much, if you want it, you are pretty much guaranteed to have a successful career in this field. And there's essentially, if you do the work and you're capable, there's virtually no risk to it, as opposed to the old model, which didn't work too well for the millennial generation. So I very much, that's exactly where we are. I think this is a generation that values security, and maybe is willing to trade off some of the upside in return for that security. But the demand that we're seeing for these hire, train, deploy pathways demonstrates that these kind of pathways, that kind of security, is really at a premium for this generation.
For sure.
So, Ryan, maybe we can pivot for a second. I know we've spoken a lot about apprenticeships. I got a question for you. I'm fairly intrigued. So, in this podcast, we also not just focus on what's happening in the business world, but some of the personal stuff. So, you met your wife at Yale at an English class, or in an English class, I believe. She's a writer and producer for, amongst other, she was involved in The Handmaid's Tale, right? She was one of
right
the
now she's
producers.
She's the showrunner, although they're on strike. she's the,
she's on
the co-showrunner of the show, so she runs it. She helps run it.
You're a writer. You manage a PE firm. I'm intrigued. How do you manage those busy schedules? How do you balance work life and family life, given how busy both of you are?
Well, it's easier when she's on strike. Although she's on the negotiating committee, so she has responsibility. Right now, her responsibility is to wait until the studio's call to come back into the room. But no, yeah, look, it's difficult. I think what I say is that my writing is all, I have a passion for it. I do it on the evenings, in the evenings on weekends, and it's a those of you who receive my newsletter. It's a regular thing. Every other Friday, it's in your inbox, and I know that I have believe it or not, an audience of people who actually look forward. It amazes me. Look forward to seeing what I have to say, and so I do it. It's the discipline, in the same way that someone who's an athlete will train with that level of I know that it has to be done by this date and so forth. So I'm always thinking about it. I always build it into my schedule on the evenings and weekends and make it work. And we're both sort of principals in what we do, so we can when we work, whether it's 2 a.m. or 6 a.m. or Saturday night, we can make it work.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's difficult. We have three boys, 17, 14, and 12. It's easier now than it was a decade ago. I'll tell you that. They have more independent.
I know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Ryan, we talked a lot about apprentices, and obviously that's an environment where they get to learn from others. And, the whole point of the show is to have, people on and share their experiences. Did you have a mentor that you recall from your career, and can you share that story with us?
Yeah. I would say at Warburg Pincus, which is my sort of introduction to private equity. My mentor there was a fellow by the name of Rod Moorhead, who was one of the senior partners at the firm. He was really the kind of founder of healthcare investing there in the 1970s and 80s, and backed companies like Humana and U.S. Healthcare and so forth. And I really developed my approach to investing from him. He had kind of, he liked to say that as an investor, you really only do 4 things. You decide to enter an investment, you decide to exit an investment, you hire a CEO, and you, if necessary, fire the CEO. Everything else that you do is in support of the CEO, right? So it really is about leadership, management, and so as Joe and Justin know, I am not a kind of micro manager. I like to hire great people and support them, and help them do their jobs well, and that's from Rod.
It's great. So I have one last question. I don't know if you guys have some other ones, but I have a son he's a senior in high school. Sounds like you have some around the same age, and I've got a daughter that's in college now. What advice would you give to a parent who's got a 16, 17-year-old thinking about graduating college? They're looking at these tuition prices out there, and they want to make a good decision based on ROI. How would you advise them to think about that decision?
Yeah, well, actually, so I had a matrix in my last book. I kind of had a matrix on this, and I don't think my thinking has changed too much, which is to say, if you can get into a highly selective college and it's affordable for you, there's no better choice. in the world. So whether that's top 20, top 50, you might be able to stretch it beyond that, top 100 schools. If they reject more students than they accept, it's a selective college. And if you can get in and it's affordable, go do it. So beyond that, if you're looking at either it's non-selective and affordable, or it's selective but unaffordable for you, for your family, and in the book I have a test as to what affordability should mean from the Lumina Foundation. They have a definition of that. Then I think you should be looking elsewhere. And of course, if it's non-selective and not affordable, then you have the worst of both worlds, and you probably should see a flashing red light, and you shouldn't go there. But you should be looking at alternatives. Yes, apprenticeships, obviously, in the back of my new book, I have a directory of every apprenticeship program in the U.S. that is hiring outside the construction trades. So I sort of leaving construction out of it. So finance, healthcare, tech, and so forth. So these are all apprenticeship programs where you can submit an application today, and the website is there in that directory. So that's one option. But again, as we've been saying, we don't have the seats, we don't have the infrastructure yet. So what are your other options? Another option would be you have many frontline jobs, for retailers, for hospitality today, that are partnered with organizations like Guild Education and EdAssist, where as a benefit, it's not just so it used to be like, 5 years ago, this was just, you'd enroll in an online degree, which was tangentially, if at all, related to your, what you wanted to do, right? You'd be like getting a bachelor's in business from Southern New Hampshire University, and, you're working at Walmart or something like that. So that's, fine. But now these Guild and EdAssist are running these, what I call kind of career apprenticeship programs, which is you're working for Walmart or you're working for Chipotle, and it's maybe a 1 year or 18-month curated pathway where it's taking you from frontline to a gateway role in that organization. So it's not a degree program. It's a series of curated skill-based learning modules that Guild has put together in association with the employer that if you complete it, will bring you to the attention of the hiring manager for that gateway. By gateway, I mean like good first, good entry-level job, right? You're not serving in the could be store manager, right? So that Chipotle has a pathway to store manager. But it could be, data analyst or, junior software developer type thing. So that's sort of where these are going. And so, if presented with with an alternative between enrolling in a non-selective college that my family can't afford versus having my son or daughter take a frontline job with one of these kind of curated pathways to a good gateway entry level position, in my mind, there's no comparison. They should do the latter. And there are tens of thousands of jobs out there that now either have this today or will have this soon. And again, I distinguish between kind of this sort of next generation career apprenticeship model and what was there originally, which is just an online degree, which is not related and doesn't connect you with, doesn't provide upward mobility within the same organization. So I'm not in favor of. But these next generation pathways, they really are like apprenticeship programs, and there is a much higher supply of those jobs.
That's great. So I'm not sure if Justin and Joe forewarned you, but now we're getting to the part of the show that we like to call the lightning round.
So you ready, Ryan?
Ready. All right.
All right. Here we go. First question. LA or New York?
New York.
Scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at trivia?
8. My brother's a 10.
Oh, wow. What temperature do you like your thermostat at?
68.
What's the name of the street you grew up on?
Glengrove.
Would you go to a movie alone?
No.
Do you have any friends taller than 6'4"?
Yes.
Have you ever been to Africa?
Yes.
Name a word that starts with the letter Q.
Quebec.
Climb a mountain or jump out of a plane?
Oh, climb a mountain. I just climbed a mountain with my boys. 14,250. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Where? What mountain?
It was
sorry to interrupt.
Washington Mountain Peak. It's
That's
right near the
amazing.
Nevada border. Yeah.
Well,
Super cool.
Okay. How many cups of coffee have you drank today?
Zero. I don't drink coffee. Zero.
Okay. Next appearance on network TV is?
Never.
Favorite number?
2.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at keeping secrets?
10.
Favorite day of the week?
Saturday.
Fill in the blank. Joe Mitchell's accent is?
The Beatles.
I was going to say disturbing.
Yeah.
How many miles have you run today?
Zero today. Yeah.
Okay. Big dogs or small dogs?
Medium-sized dogs.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, it's mine too.
Have you ever been camping?
Oh yes, just last week. Yeah.
Left or right-handed?
Right-handed.
Have you ever ridden a horse?
Yes.
There we go. Done.
That's-
All right.
Hey.
I thought you were going to be asking like lightning round on like apprenticeship policy. I was getting all.
No.
Those are easier. It's easier.
No, we
That's
found
next
out
episode.
you climb mountains, so we
Okay.
know that.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can anybody that's listening find you and your work?
Yeah, well, so the Gap Letter at gapletter.com, subscribe to that. And then the new book coming out, Apprentice Nation, in November. And I'll be probably at 20 cities, something at this point now is planning book talks. I know I have one in Orlando at a bookstore there. So I don't know whether I'm going
We
to
might
make
need
it
to come up there and visit.
Great.
you.
but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let you-
we'll certainly
We'll have to
visit you.
support you.
let you
Yep.
know. Great.
Can't wait.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thanks again
excellent,
for
Ryan.
being on the pod.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vince, Justin, Joe. Always good talking to you guys.
Yes, it's
Likewise.
our
Thanks,
pleasure.
Thanks,
Ryan.
Ryan.
This episode of Opportunity Accelerators has been brought to you by Skillstorm, where our purpose as an organization is to launch and accelerate tech careers. Please be sure to like and subscribe to catch the next episode.